I'd like to welcome everyone to our budget committee. We have not done a budget committee since I have been here. It was kind of we had gone more of the budget workshop, public kinds of things, but I think we're back at a time when it's really important that we really build this budget and get as much input and insight as we go along, because each and every day is a new adventure with COVID, but also the impacts of COVID, which go back to impacts on budget. So first thing I thought would be an important thing to do would be just to kick off by just saying thank you for agreeing to be a part of the committee. And then you, along with all the members of the committee, will help develop an expenditure budget that will be the district spending plan for the 21-22 school year. So that's why we're here. But I think it'd be important tonight. I see lots of new faces that, I know the faces, but I thought it'd be great if we went around and just introduced everybody this evening around the screen. And if everybody could just say who they are, I'll maybe call out, we'll go around. See, I can't tell if you've got the same order I do on the screen. So my guess is that would be logical, and logical is never what happens. So I'm going to start off with Mr. Lisi, and then if you could go, and then whoever's to the right of Mr. Lisi, when you're when you're on the screen, you're next. How's that?
Why don't I just call out the next person?
I tell you what, Don, that sounds like an awesome idea. Thank you.
I'm here for you, Brian. So I'm Dom Lisi. I'm the Chief of Operations and Innovation. And I think that means, Jean, you're next. Jean Perry.
Hi, Jean Perry. I am Brian's secretary and secretary to the board.
Brenda.
I am Brenda Abelgore. I am a board member and a former parent of the district.
Donna.
Hi, I'm Donna Parkhurst, the high school principal, and I'm here to help communicate with our administrative group.
Great.
Carrie.
I'm Carrie Phillips, president of the Fulton Teachers Association, former student in Fulton, parent of a former student in Fulton, taxpayer in the city of Fulton, and teacher in the city of Fulton. So I have lots and lots of strong investment in this community.
How about Tina?
Hi, I'm Tina Giuseppe. I am a former parent of a former student. I also am the workforce collaboration manager at OCO for the SCORE program, and I live in Fulton as well.
Thanks, Tina. Nick?
Nick DeJalorme, board member.
Let's see. Thanks, Nick. Fallon?
Fallon Cooper, board member, current parent of 3 students. That's it.
Very good. Leanne?
My name's Leanne Spoon. I am the office aide at Volney Elementary. I live in Fulton, and I also have a kindergartner and a 7th grader in the district. I'm also the vice president of Volney's parent group.
Thank you. Zachary?
Hi, my name is Zach Mentor. I'm a community member with this group, and I own Mentor Ambulance in Fulton. I have 3 kids, 2 of which are in the Fulton City School District. Both of them go to Lanigan, 1 in 4th grade, 1 in 6th grade.
Great, thank you. Penny?
Hi, I'm Penny Downing. I am math teacher and department chair at the high school and FTA vice president.
Thanks, Penny. Lynn?
Hi, I'm Lynn Lyons, Board of Ed member. I am the mother of 2 people that work for the school district. I am a taxpayer, and I also went to the Fulton schools.
Great. I see Brianna. It says Brianna Horton on the screen.
Oh, it's Spencer Horton, and I have 2 kids in the school district, and I also work in the Oswego County, and do a lot of business with the businesses in that area of Fulton.
Great. Thanks, Spencer. Kelly Green.
Hi, I'm Kelly. I serve on the site-based team for Lanigan School. I worked there for several years as a teaching assistant in 611. I have 2 students in the district, a junior and a 7th grader, and I can't wait to get them back full time. Can I just say that? And also, I'm a business owner in town with my husband, Chris.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Dan Carroll.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Carroll, Executive Director for Instruction and Achievement in the district.
Very good. Becky Devendorf.
Hello, my name is Becky Devendorf, and I'm a proud alum of GRB High School many, many years ago. I have 2 seniors who are about ready to graduate and head off to college. I work for Cuga Community College here at the Fulton campus, and I'm on the site-based committee at the high school.
Very good. Thank you. Mrs. Jerry Geithner.
Hello, I'm Jerry Geithner. I'm the Executive Director of Human Resources and Student Services, also a proud GRB alum, and I won't tell you how long ago that happened. So,
Great. And Ms. Kathy Nichols.
Good evening. I'm the business administrator for the school district, and I have worked there for 14 years.
Thank you. You're also going to see 2 icons on there for Tim Wilson. Tim is our media specialist and works for the tech department. And I think I've got everyone. Did I miss anyone? I think we're good to go there, Mr. Balvino.
Well, actually, let me interrupt, Mr. Lisi. I didn't notice that we had 4 board members, so I'm going to have to call the meeting to order. Just so you know. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Palvino. So I'll call it to order. And then 1.02 to approve the minutes. Can somebody move it?
I'll move it.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, and now I will turn it over to Mr. Palvino. I apologize.
You caught it. I actually wrote quorum. I was counting myself, trying to keep track of how many. So you let me know at the right time. So thank you. Thrilled that we have everybody here this evening. And again, a couple of weeks ago or about a month ago, we were talking about having a budget committee. And I'm like, how do you get a cross section of your community? There are so many. And I will tell you what, Jean and Robin had some great suggestions. What a great cross section. And I can see we're represented at all different levels, and you have many different experiences that you're bringing to the table. So that's going to make this, I think, kind of fun, actually. And if you haven't really worked with me before, normally I have a tie on. Today it's not on because we decided to have a weather situation this morning early on, and so I don't normally have a tie on. I say, take me by the tie and make me listen. And so what I mean by that is everybody's voice is essential, and please be heard. Never feel like there's never a question that's not important, and never a comment that's not going to help us reflect and get better. So again, thank you for choosing to participate in this process, and I look forward to the outcomes over time. So I'll take us back to our committee agenda, and you can see that, I hope, on there. Is that right? We'll just quickly go over our vision, mission, beliefs, and guiding principles. It's really the centerpiece. Everything that we do, a good budget, brings us back and helps us work toward attaining each of those. We'll go over briefly the budget committee role and purpose. We'll have a review of the budget development process. We shared with you, there's a link. I'm not going to turn it on tonight, but there's a link, YouTube. It's about 2 minutes. It reminds me of the one that probably when many of us were growing up over time, the one that, the bill, you ever seen This Is a Bill, the little thing that sings along. And this is actually a great overview for New York State and the budget process. We'll touch on the budget policies we provided you. Again, I'm not going to go through all those tonight. The budget calendar, the budget format, just to show you the different parts of a 3-part budget. The budget revenues that we got from the state in a much easier format to read that comes out from one of the advocacy agencies. I'll show you that, kind of give you an idea of where we're at on the initial executive budget. And then I had Ms. Nichols put together our fund balance and reserves, which we'll talk about. The budget, the Board of Education met on December 15th, and we established budget parameters. Those are embedded into your PowerPoint this evening. Those are really those things that keep us focused and at the center, that we made priorities, and you'll see that they align they're right out of our strategic coherence plan, our 5-year plan. And our commitment was that 5-year plan really is that guidepost that we're always coming back as our center line in decision making, and it's a centerpiece for making budget decisions. Key data to consider, we'll show you a little bit of Forecast 5 just to give you a little idea of one of the tools that we're using to really help us get an idea of in many different ways around expenditures, revenues, things like that. We won't go into all of that tonight, but it's a great tool for us to compare to similar districts. And we can really see, are we outspending? Are we underspending? Do we see different kinds of trends? It really helps us do some trend analysis. And then we'll end with next steps and questions you may have and insights about what would help us make this process meaningful and purposeful for you. So moving it on to the next screen, our mission and our vision. These were updated during the strategic coherence planning process that we went through, gosh, it seems like forever ago, but about 2 years ago. And that plan runs through the 23-24 school year. And you'll see some of the key components of that. So there's our mission and our vision. It's really everything we're trying to attain each one of these for each one of our kids each and every day. Next page is our beliefs and our guiding principles. The guiding principles have been here right along. They've been kind of a static piece for us. It talks about, ironically, these were in place, and look what the very first one, create a safe, secure, positive learning environment. Obviously a centerpiece of everything that we're doing around health and safety, especially over the last almost year now. The communications, we've really been working on that in many different modalities. Quality educational experiences, we continue to try to provide new and different ways and innovative ways to reach our kids right now during these difficult times. And I'll be honest with you, we were really onto something with our literacy program before COVID. You can see it in our 3rd grade scores and 2nd grade scores right now. You can see they didn't, unfortunately, regress as far as others, which is a good thing. I still would have liked to see them going the other direction, but it tells us that our foundations are really getting stronger and stronger around literacy. So that gives you a good example of what the kind of work we're trying to do. And then our fiscal responsibility, trying to constantly come back, monitor, and are we maximizing the dollars and the revenues that we are afforded. The next is really the budget committee role and purpose. And I am going to put credit where credit is due. My predecessor, one of the things he left me were lots and lots of notes and opportunities. And I said, gee, I wonder what Mr. Lynch left me for budget committee. And there it was, one click, and I found folder upon folder of budget committees. And so I pulled that back out, and they made a lot of sense. So really the purpose of the budget committee, and they had done it for a number of years, dating back to the Mike Egan years. And so one of those things that they talked about is that this team will provide input to me and my team in the development of the budget for 21-22. And that we'll be presenting to the Board of Education, hopefully for their ratification sometime in April. Either probably at the first April meeting or a special meeting in case the governor throws us a curveball at the end of March, early April with the final executive budget. You never know kind of what's going to come out in that final budget from the state. So you never know. The committee's role is advisory, with the ultimate decisions of what is contained in the budget recommendation being that of the superintendent. The committee members will bring their perspectives from the community for consideration as various areas of the budget are developed. And this is really important. The reason why we're here is to service children. That's why we're here. If we don't have kids and we don't have families, we don't have a district. And so I have believed that for the last 31 years that I've been in education, that every decision should come back to our kids, our family, and our community. And that's everything that we do comes back to that. And how do we best strengthen that? Because if we can do that, we will see our enrollment trends go the other way. And right now, most districts' enrollment trends are actually going down, as which ours has over the years. And I can show a slide on that a little bit later. The committee members will bring their, input and discussions will be shared with the board. So Jean is taking notes and keeping track of things. So we'll be doing that. We'll be sharing updates with the board at the monthly board meetings. So what we've done is budget committees and workshops are opposite the Tuesday nights of Board of Education meetings. Let's see, we'll share that. Notes will be recorded, and then the notes will be shared with committee members as well, posted on the district website. We have a section for the budget, and then the meetings will be live streamed. Probably should have said that. I believe we're being live streamed tonight. I didn't even look. So I assume Mr. Wilson has us up and going this evening. That's a new feature. If anything's coming up positive around COVID, the advent of these meetings and the opportunity for families and community members to and members of our faculty and staff to participate is really great, because our attendance at board meetings never was huge, and it's not huge most places unless you have something really fun and juicy that's happening that creates some questions and energy and emotions in the community. So this is a great opportunity for us. So I'll be looking forward to see how many people are watching tonight. Are there any questions or thoughts about the budget committee roles and purposes? Alrighty. The other thing you can do, my team has gotten really good at it. Brian, you talk too much. Move on. All right. So if I'm chattering too much, let me know. I'm very open about that. Talking is not an issue for me. We also, the importance, the highlights of why we have a budget committee, and I'm not going to read through each one of those, but it really provides a great opportunity for us to communicate, to share, to review the past, an opportunity for us to really have questions back and forth. That's what helps us really get a better, deeper budget. And then when we have to make difficult decisions, we've had those discussions, we've had the opportunity to really chew on them, get feedback, and make the decision that's in the best interest of our kids and for our district. So I'm not going to read through those, but they're there for you as a reference. Just I'd be remiss if there's anything that since I've gotten here that, there's been a lot of strategic plans over the years in lots of districts, and they sit on lots of shelves over the years, but we really made a commitment to coherence. And what I really take from this, it really requires consistency of purpose, practice, and shared commitment to improve student achievement. That collective commitment is really what our plan is all about. And that's what makes it different than a typical strategic coherence or a typical strategic plan. That coherence piece really comes back to making sure we have a focused direction, that we create a lot of collaboration and opportunity for input. And as we're generating things, it's about deepening our learning and then putting in pieces to progress monitor, ensure that we have internal as well as external accountability, that we're holding one another accountable. That's when good things happen. And then when we look in the rearview mirror 5 years from now, we can say, oh yeah, that's a part of our district. It's one of those foundation principles that everything comes back to. And so I think that's what's important about our plan. So it's there for our reference, and it has our wheel that we borrowed from Dr. Fullen, whose theory and philosophy this is. The next slide just kind of is a very quick snapshot of those key elements, those strategic intents in each part of our plan. There's a leadership component, a literacy component, instruction, social, emotional, developmental health, family engagement, and innovation. Again, I won't read them, but one of those areas you probably heard me already say tonight once, if not twice, that number 3 is really something that I think is the key to moving all of our kids and ensuring that all of our kids walk out of our district with the ability to be competitive, to be contributors to their community, that 95% of third grade students will be reading at or above grade level. And as I said, we were on our way there until COVID hit us. We could feel it in the level of just what we were seeing being done in the classroom was absolutely amazing. And they're continuing to do that. It's just a little bit more of a challenge right now. So I'm not going to go through those, but these are those strategic intents, those main focus areas in each of these key target areas for us. So it's a great reference that we're putting a budget together. How is our budget helping us work toward each one of these? So that's really the key to this slide. So one of the things on December the 15th, we met with our board at a budget workshop. Some of you may have participated via the video or via live stream or watched it since. And on here, you can see each of those areas I mentioned before, but broke out a little bit more. So in the leadership area, one of the initial budget parameters, because it came out of that initial meeting, was to secure long-term fiscal health. And each of those areas are listed underneath there. So that importance of cost-effective education, that we try to maintain our tax rate stability from year to year, that we work within the famous tax cap, that COVID-19 has had huge impacts on New York State and on the federal. So that's a piece that we really have to keep in mind, because in 8, 9, 10, when we had the Great Recession, it took our district until about 2019 to actually get our reserves and our fund balances back. It took almost 8 to 10 years. And Bill left me a great opportunity when he passed the torch to me. And it allowed us, he really had, the board and Bill had worked together to get to that point. And then we kind of have continued that on. And so now that our reserves and fund balances are very strong, which is the equivalent of your savings. So it's good to have that, but we all know if you use your savings up to balance your budget or do your daily operations, eventually you don't have any savings. So it allows us to have something to fall back on for short bursts of time, but over time we have to be able to react. So we know we're in a bit of a challenge revenue-wise from the state. So we know that 5, 10 years from now, we're still going to be working through that and hopefully getting us back to 100% again. So that's the leadership area. Literacy, I've already referenced that, but our Oswego County Literacy Initiative, as well as all of the supports and interventions that we have in place for kids. So that's important in this literacy part. The second part was around the second two are instruction and social emotional development health. So this one is instruction, really speaks to it. So maintain a strong instructional program that is responsive to teachers and students' post-pandemic needs. One of the things we've talked about is as we prepare, hopefully sooner than later, to get all of our kids and staff and back in, we recognize the fact that we have kids, we're going to have kindergartners that'll be entering as first graders that have never stepped foot in a school before, which is pretty amazing. You can't quite contemplate that, but that's the experience. We've got other kids that have been in our system, but they may have been remote since March of 20 and may have chosen to stay on remote. And so now we're going to have kids that are going upwards of 15 months where they may not have had any school in classroom exposure. So we're going to have a range of needs. So that's going to be an important part of this budget, really thinking about, how do we position ourselves to make sure that our kids and our staff have all of the tools and the resources to be able to hit the ground running and to get focused on that ultimate prize, which is graduation and beyond. And then the social emotional, I mentioned the multi-tiered systems of support, and that's our tiered system that we have here in our system, where we closely monitor our kids through a variety of different mechanisms. And then all of the different trauma sensitive and culturally responsive practice work that we've been doing. And a key to a strong program is those two things really in balance is what is essential. And then on the third section here, it looks at family engagement and innovation. And the family engagement is the enhanced communication systems responsive to needs. That's a big part of our family engagement and also a huge challenge. We have we've got so many different modalities to communicate through, and it's, how do you make sure that you're meeting the needs of all, and that's what's challenging. So and then innovation, maintain our commitment to our one-on-one digital learning. Who would have known when we put this plan together a couple of years ago that the one-on-one initiative would be so important? And because of that, I think we got out a little bit quicker out of the gate than some districts. There were districts that were waiting as late as just this past December just to get technology for their kids, just access to a tool like a Chromebook. So it had a lot to do with this plan that we thought ahead. And in that case, that department, took the lead, and we had this opportunity. So when we went into this, even last March, we were better poised to handle this maybe than other districts. So, but I think it had a lot to do with our plan, and we have a long range plan for that to make sure that we can maintain that. And then also looking at how do we get all of our district systems to work, all those systems and processes to work in a coherent way. Too often in an organization, you have kind of compartmentalized kinds of things, but strong organizations create those connections and you break down those silos so that we work even more efficiently and effectively. And then we could put those, we hopefully be more efficient, which results in pushing more resources and more supports back where they belong, which is out in front of our kids. So I've gone through quite a few things right there. Are there any questions or thoughts about the parameters or what they are, or they're just a really good reference for us to always go back to? Are there any questions? Alrighty, okay. Let's see. On this slide, there's the review of the budget development process. We have the policies, the calendar. So what I'm going to do, we're going to see if I can really drive now. So the first one, if I pull this down here, let's see how fast this works. So the policies you were shared, and on here, there are a number of policies that we shared with you. They're in a PDF format. I'm not going to read them, but one of the things that I always knew was important before I came to Fulton was policy, but I didn't know how important it was until I got to Fulton. And Fulton has upwards of 400 plus policies. And, you know, I remember saying, gee, we have a lot of policies. And yet at the same time, there is a number of these policies. I am so glad they exist because they have been extremely helpful. So some of these policies, these are dated 12. We need to take them back through. There's really no adjustments on them. But what they highlight is the things that you have to do. So the district has fiscal management goals. There's a policy with respect to budget planning. There is a policy with respect to budget deadlines and schedules. So it just lets you know that we're in accordance with Ed Law 2517 here. Determination of budget priorities. It's really, that goes back to, we call them budget parameters, but this policy really drives that work. And these are the essentials that the boards look for: health and safety, related to the educational goals. They're very similar to our guidelines that I shared at the beginning. So you can see where those guidelines really came from over the years. You'll see these really are very reflective of that. So these are just in one place for your reference. How we have to go about disseminating the budget. There's information with respect to that. The annual budget hearing and the timelines that we need to follow for that. You'll find that if you're lying in bed at night and you really have something you want to do, reading educational law is just riveting. But you'll find that that small city school districts have actually different parameters and laws in certain areas than central school districts and city school districts. So it's very interesting to look at. So that's the importance of the policies. So the timelines are a little bit different, things like that. So when you may see that, this explains a little bit of that. And then the property tax report card that we have to do every year and turn into the state of New York, as well as the 6-day school budget notice. So those are just some of the key policies that we reference. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them, but I wanted to reference them for you. Other documents that you have here, we've provided you the budget workshop document from our workshop on December 15th. So it's for easy reference for you just to see, but you've already seen a couple of the slides. There's also some slides in here just looking at, I mentioned the Great Recession. There's a reference slide in there with that. What that was, if you take a look there, you can see how the state resources, this is when, looked pretty good through here, right through 2011, and then look what happened. This is when we had some significant issues in the state. The state dropped state aid to school districts. Federal resources went up. You can see them right here. And so what happened was, and so you can see how then we started to rebound as federal kind of got flat again. And finally in 17.8, you can see it start climbing again. And now we're going to see it kind of go back down again in the current. So there's some reference slides there for you. The other pieces that you have, this is an exciting slide, Kathy. I was so happy when you sent it to me. Thank you. And this one's always good because this is the one of our fund balance and how it's really changed, over time. So on this one, you'll see It's actually 630.17. It was off the presses. So you'll see in 17, we started off with a total fund balance of $10,201,000, and we've increased that all the way to $11,751,000. So in those years, we've been able to, and you can see this is where I was, great opportunity. You'd see from 16, 17, this actually grew here. You see it go up by about 700 here. You can see 783. Then we had a 95 increase, and then this past year we had a 671,000. So we've had a $1.5 million increase. This is a good thing, and this just tells us our reserves, our assigned fund balances, and our unassigned. So it looks like we have a lot of money, but there's only a certain percentage of that. And Kathy, it's around 6 million, right, that we can actually comfortably use flexibly. Is that correct? Kathy hates when I do this to her.
Trying to find how to turn it on. We can use the unassigned fund balance, which is around $3 million, and then some of the reserves, depending on our need, all the reserves were established for legal specific purposes, but they can be utilized during the budgeting process to offset some budgeted costs.
Yep.
So the TRS reserve or ERS reserve can be used to help offset those costs in the upcoming year, for an example.
Yep. So what it is basically we're almost to 4%, which is the comptroller is actually a little bit over. We're in good shape, but it looks like it's a lot of money. It really isn't. But the state limits the amount of money that you can actually keep in your reserves and your fund balances. So we're right at or just about at our maximums in each. So we couldn't be poised any better. To give you an idea of just some of the other slides and information that I provide you, this one, let me see if I can make it bigger. I'm not sure I can make it bigger, or maybe I can. Yes, I can. Getting better at this. Let's see. So this just gives you an idea of you may have heard that the governor he puts his executive budget out, comes out around January 21st this year. It came out, and you'll see that a big part of it is federal funds, and you'll see it right here, where federal COVID supply, stimulus. There's right here is where it's put in. So this is all the stimulus monies that he is anticipating from the federal government in the latest one. And then the federal CARES was actually an earlier federal monies that came into the state of New York. So what he did was he took $1 billion out of the state aid budget from New York State from right here, and he took it out and he replaced it with federal CARES. So automatically there's $1 billion hole. The other piece that I'd like to point out in this slide, and then I'll take us to Fulton, is this services aid. And this is going to be an important piece as we talk and go along. There are, I believe, 11 different aids here that are listed. This year, what the governor has decided to do is combine all of these, transportation, BOCES aid, all the way down through. The result of doing that is that each one of these has a different formula in the past world. And so you may have different reimbursements for each one of those. So for example, transportation aid is around 90% for us. And I think our BOCES aid rides somewhere about 83 to 85%, I believe, or thereabouts. The issue here is that when you combine them, and I'm going to show you the next slide, when they're combined, Fulton actually loses $416,000, and it's right here. So it's a minus 4.3%. This isn't a good thing. And so this is an area, I just wanted to point that out, that this is an area, services aid is an area that you'll be hearing about. And it's an area when we meet with Senator Ritchie and Assemblyman Barclay on Thursday evening this week, this will be, at least it'll be something that I believe Fulton will be bringing up as well as other districts. I think this is a huge piece for us because look back, that's $416,000 for Fulton. It's also for the state of New York, $692 million that's lost in this formula. So this is like a big deal. And this is aid reduction that will impact us forever if this formula goes this direction. So that's just an important piece here. So if I work you down through Fulton, you'll see that foundation aid is the same. That's really not surprising, 0% change. The services aid, the way he formulates it, makes it look like it's here, 0.6, the way he adds it up this way. but then when you actually look at the impact, it's minus 416. And I'm not going to read all of them, but if you drop down through, you'll see that in the end, we're actually decreasing we're up by 1%. But if you look at the total state aid funding, school aid and STAR, we're actually minus 4.1%. So he would argue that we're getting 4.1 million right here. So there's good news and bad news. Federal monies is a way of band-aiding. The problem is federal monies come in one time. What happens 2 years from now, 3 years from now? These monies need to be filled in by the state of New York, or we have a problem. So this is why you'll have a fiscal cliff eventually. And Kathy and I were talking about that the other day. So it just gives you an idea of where that is. Are there any questions on that? I'm throwing a lot out, and I don't want to do that tonight, but I just want to give you an idea of some of the things that we're looking at. The other document that I wanted to provide you as we start to go through this, and we're just starting to go through the budget, but this is last year's Fulton in Touch. This was our budget edition. The reason I wanted to show you this, it actually has, this is where we're going to end up at the end of this entire process. We're actually going to have a document that has our actual budget from 20 to 2021. It'll have our proposed budget for 21-22 and a contingency budget, which we're required to have in as well. It'll have our tax cap, our tax levy, all of these different kinds of things will be listed here. And then it also lays out, and throughout the process, we'll be hearing more and more about, as we meet in future meetings, we'll be talking about the program aspects of the budget. There's 3 parts. Program budget, that's our instruction. That's our regular school, our special education, special schools, benefits, so on and so forth. This is the meat and potatoes of a budget. So you can see for us in 1920, it was 55,100,000. In the current budget, we have a budget of 55,825,000. So we had a modest increase of about 700,000. But at the same time, our capital budget, we had gone from 10,668 to 10,374. So that's actually went down. And then that's your facilities. That's your capital outlay projects, things like that. So that's what's in there, our debt service, so on and so forth. And then our administrative budget are all of the things to support program and capital. And that's our board, central administration, supervision of schools, finance, that's our business office, personnel, BOCES administrative. And so in that area, we actually were modestly the same there, 7.534 to 7.577. So you can see the percentage of budget actually went down. And these are our budgets this year. So this, when we go through this, we really break the budget into 3 components, program, capital, and administrative. So really the point is, gives you an idea of what last year at the end of the process, where we were at. This is a way to demonstrate that. Also in that document is a year-to-year comparison. So you can see how we compared our revenues as well as our expenditures right here, our budget percentages compared to our revenue percentages. Important here is we're a heavy program. We're always around 75% program. And we are very heavily laden in state aid. So I think this is an important slide here as well. So I wanted to point those out to you as well. Are there any questions? Once again, I looked down at the clock and realized I've been talking for 39 minutes straight. And it's hard. This is very different because if I were in a room, I'd be moving around and getting you. So it's a little different doing it this way. It's a lot of information. But this is really, I felt like a time for just to share what you were seeing in your references, so that at future meetings, we'll be able to really dig in and make those connections as we do overviews of what's going on in different, the 3 parts of the budget, and so the recommendations that we're making. And that's it for that. Let me see, I did the budgets, 3-year. The budget time frame, just to give you an idea, this is on our website as well, but you also have a copy of it. That's also one of the policies that we have a calendar. You'll see we've already done the budget workshop right here on December 15th. We're at the budget committee right here, right now on February 2nd. We have board meetings scheduled on here. Our next budget committee is scheduled for March 2nd. I would think at that budget committee, we're probably going to discuss adding another one in here. We're really trying to get an idea will we have a better idea of where the federal government is. I know President Biden is working very closely with both houses right now, trying to get through a stimulus bill. Our fingers are crossed for the $15 billion to New York State. That would be an absolutely wonderful thing. This budget is based on a $6 billion anticipated by the governor, $3 billion each year. So I think it's something for us to keep an eye on. So as we get more information, we can reach out and we can coordinate another meeting outside the March 2nd as well. My guess is we're going to need another one to digest more information. And then just working further out, you'll see we've got some budget workshops. This is the holiday week right here, April 1st. And then we have to have a tentative budget done by the 27th. We really have to have it actually the 13th. The board meeting, we scheduled a special board meeting on the 20th, just in case we don't get it done on the 13th of April, because we have to publish our newsletter. And then as you look down, there's some important dates here, drawing for Board of Ed candidates on the ballot, so on and so forth. We have to have our budget newsletter out to the public on the 4th. Our public hearing required is on the 5th. And then our big day is May 18th. So it sounds like it's a long way away. But when you think about that, it's about 3 months. The budget needs to be done in about 2.5, roughly. So it's ambitious, actually. We're right on time right now, kind of where we always are, and that's the letter I shared. I mentioned 5-Site. I just wanted to show you a new toy that we're playing with, and I call it a toy because it's really fun. Those of you that think this kind of stuff is fun, you can all do a, oh no, I don't know what it just did. We lost your last few changes. Well, okay. And it did. It took us to Addison. So now you guys are going to see me drive a second here. So I'm going to go down here. Apparently it doesn't like it if you let it sit too long. Let me see here quickly if I can find Fulton. And this is just an example of, we can actually look over time. We can look at revenues, expenditures. We can look at every line in the budget. This one happens to be enrollment, just to give you an idea. So to go back, if I hover over this, in 2007, we had 3,753 kids, and we had 45% of our kids, just over, were free and reduced. Then let's go ahead, let's say 7 years. So to 2014, we've now gone to 3,594 students. So you can see we've lost enrollment, and our free and reduced has gone up to 56.26%. Now we go from where we were at 3,594, you go all the way to where we are now, and we have dropped down to 3,200 students this school year, and our free and reduced is up to 64%. So when you see that, we are becoming more high need, and our enrollment is dropping. So we've got two phenomenon going on here at the same time. And so it's just it's an interesting slide, but to see that we were at 3,753, we've lost 553 kids in 13 years. So it's just something we've really got to keep an eye on. I think we've done a really good job right sizing, and we can show that at a future meeting. So now let's see if I can take us back here and see if I actually did everything, and I did on here. And again, I'm chattering. Let me just see where we're at here. So we've gone through a number of these different things, and then our strategy is to really monitor federal, state, and local revenue predictions very carefully. So we're in the process of doing that. We still have that transportation aid issue hanging over our head, knock on wood. We've been fighting with that for about, 4 years now. That's still a continuing fight. We haven't been garnished any monies from that. Hopefully we will not be. We're looking at building aid projections. The third bullet is good news. The Department of Budget has announced, and I think every person in the state of New York related to school districts wrote it down, was that the Department of Budget has indicated that they will not hold 20% this year from school districts and aid. Let's hope that that's true. But that's what they've said, and they had a quote, so we'll see if they can be held to their quote. And then the federal aid, right now, I guess the good news is that they're working on it. and hopefully they come out with something that's very positive to support states at the state level, but also school districts, you know, at the local level. We'll continue to analyze our district expenditures. We'll evaluate our current programs and determine needs. We spent the last couple days looking at some of our programming, special education, really digging in every year, looking at our enrollments across the district. We're starting to pull that all together, so we'll have that for you at the next meeting, as well as for the board. We're looking at all budget reduction possibilities. I mean, obviously, it's great news that there's not going to be any withholding, hopefully, in the current budget year, but also good news that there is federal money. The other piece is we know that what we're doing now will help us make decisions down the road 2 and 3 years. We have to be thinking that far off, because if we don't think about those things, that cliff will happen, and then we'll have a huge problem. So we just have to anticipate. I think we've done a really good job poising ourselves for that. And we've got a little bit of our own funds in our fund balance and reserves to help us with that, but we have to have a very measured and practical approach. And then obviously we have to do our projections, which are really hard. We were hoping to do 5-year budget projections prior to COVID, and then COVID hit, so that kind of changed all the dynamics at that point in time. So I covered a lot of information in 45 minutes. So now it's time for me to stop talking and really say, you know, what kinds of questions do you have? Tonight was really to stage that information. Is there anything from my team that you would add? Anything that we wanted to highlight? Either a very content crowd or I have completely put everybody to sleep.
Brian, I have a question.
Sure.
So it says budget reduction possibilities. I guess I'm wondering, how does the district make a determination as to what those might be if they have to reduce the budget?
Yeah.
So like, what would be examples of ways that we could do that?
Yeah, the first thing that always comes to my mind, it's a great question, Carrie, is to look at, we look at our enrollment, we look at our programming first, and we look at retirements, resignations, we look at attrition in the district. So those are the first things that we always look at. And anybody on my team will tell you the first question I'll ask, and Donna's on here tonight, she knows what I ask. In fact, when I walk in the door now, she'll just tell me. It's a rationale. I'll say, you know, I see you have a retirement in this area. It looks like, where are we at with enrollments for those courses projected for next year? And she might say, we need to do full staffing, Brian. This is why sections are at 24. This is what we're doing. This is why we need to fill that position. And I say, thank you. And that's it. I mean, that's where we're at. We've had situations where, for some reason, you know, we may not have the enrollments in courses. That may be a reason. Or our enrollment in classes, for example, we may have a smaller classes going through. You know, GRB used to be 1,300 kids. Right now, we've hovered right around 1,000, right, Donna, this year, between 950 and 1,000, a little over at one point. So that drives what we're doing. So that's one way. So over the years, you'll see, if you look back through budgets, we always look at the retirements, resignations, and we always ask ourselves, do we need to fill them? We look at class size, we look at all those things. So that's one example that we do. You know, others, I mean, I don't think we have anything that I would say is, wow, we have that. Last year, it troubled me because one of the first things I did, I truly believe that coaching is important for teachers as much as it is for those on the playing field and our teachers coaching kids in the classroom. And you could see it in our data, the level of vocabulary and discussion around literacy and vocabulary and language. It was so neat to see. And so this past year, we backed down our coaches, though, I believe from 8, was it to 4, I think. And that troubled me, because that was one of the things that last year, our board, we reduced 2.4 million. The cost of doing business this year, we did a rough roll ahead, meaning that everything that we have now, we roll it forward. Just the cost of keeping everything the same, taking in all contractual, it's in the neighborhood of $3 million, give or take 100,000. Because my memory's not quite, I think it was 3.1. Last year, that roll ahead was about 2.5. And so we actually reduced $2.4 million from the budget. So another area Carrie asked was we reduced the amount of dollars that we had set aside for like the purchase of equipment and things like that. Like, you know, like we may not have 100,000 set aside to 40,000 set aside, you know, those kinds of things. So we reduced in areas like that. So we were able to do that. And we also really do a zero-based type of approach, which is really saying, do we need to have X amount of personnel here? Do we need to have this many dollars set aside to do this type of project? Is this the year to do this project, for example? So those are the kinds of things that we look at. We try to look at each one of the parts of the budget in areas that we could do. Last year, I believe we reduced 400,000 in operations and facilities, for example. So those are the kinds of things we do. But eventually, the key is, and I'm not going to try to find the slide, but on the in the budget newsletter, it's very clear. We are 75% people, and that's what makes this the hardest in the world. You know, because we are so heavily human resources. That's what we're all about in schools. And, you know, and while it's a blessing, because that's what it should be, at the same time, when you're trying to address budgetary issues and you only have a certain amount of revenues, the revenues are really the key. And that's why we are really trying to monitor our expenditures, keep our reserves at full. So that's kind of an example, Carrie. Does that help? Okay. Other questions or thoughts or things that you thought the budget committee might be, and this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So, and I do know there's some people on here that have served on budget committees in the past, and I've tapped you on the shoulder to tell me what it was like, what were the pros, what were the cons, what were things that you'd look for. And it's been very helpful. So thank you. You know who you are, those that I've talked to you. So thank you. Are there other questions, thoughts about that? Nick, did you have a question, or you just? I thought you had a question. Okay, I saw you go like that. I thought you had a question.
Brian, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Mr. Palvino, it's Becky Devendorf. I do have a question. So, as I'm reading through the documents, there was some information in there about aligning staff with enrollment, right-sizing staff with enrollment, which you just talked about. But is the district in a position where instead of focusing on aligning staff, we're looking at aligning our buildings? What is the criteria from an enrollment perspective to determine whether we need, say, 4 elementary schools? I know this year we've got the 6th graders in the junior high. If that were to continue, could an elementary school be closed and the other elementary schools could absorb those students? Because I think there's a lot of focus on right-sizing staff and aligning staff, but maybe we need to look at something a little bit bigger that would have more long-term savings, like aligning our buildings. And if that means, you know, restructuring what grade levels go into each building. So where is the district as far as looking at that?
Yeah. So Becky goes big. That's what I love, Becky. It's a great question. And so one of the things, obviously, when you see declining enrollment over time, the first thing you look at some point, where do you look at that? And I think, you know, obviously, those of you that may have attended or had children that went to Volney, Volney used to have 3 sections. Since I got here, we've actually gone to 2 sections at every grade level there. We are, so that's an example there. We've made sure that right now, I think the other 3 elementary schools are riding at 3 sections at every grade level. So that took about 3 years. And we've been actually using and doing that through retirements and resignations. And then we watch the numbers at each grade level. The 6th grade at the junior high happened because of space issues this year because of COVID. The only way we could get the sections of K-5 in was to move the 6th grade here. And so that's what we did. You know, obviously, you know, I think that's one of those radical, more out there on the edges right now, Becky. I think we're, obviously there'll probably be a time, when we get there, because if our enrollment continues to go down 50 to 75, and it's not as simple as that. Somebody said, well, if you have 50 to 75, that's easy. It's not when the 50 to 75 kids on average is spread across 13 grade levels, kindergarten through 12th grade. Then it doesn't look so big. But for example, one year, I remember we had 18 second graders. Where does that come from? 18 second graders left the district from Beds Day, which is that first Wednesday in October, till the end of the year. We lost 18 second graders. That's just an odd place to lose, but they left the district, things like that. So what I would say, Becky, is we'll continue to monitor those numbers very closely. We were looking at, like, for example, this morning, we were looking at we were having a conversation about just the enrollments at each of the grade levels. And there are some grade levels out there that are starting to drop under 50, at a grade level. They may have been at 59, 60. So we're looking at all those. We're trying to get the latest data. Dan was running some different charts, things like that, and we'll share those enrollment numbers. But I would say is, last year we cut a lot of we made reductions in areas that were as far away from kids as we could, that 2.3 million, 2.4 that we did. And then now we've kind of, all right, we've addressed those. Now we've got to continue to look, if we need to, then we kind of look into that second realm. And then obviously in that third realm, I kind of do it in pieces. That's where you might look at something radical like that. And I would say it's a good question would be, I would rather see something like that happen and make a consolidation of buildings versus losing big chunks of key programming. So I shudder when I hear districts say, we're just going to offer the base Part 100. And Part 100 is those basic types of things that you never want to get there. And so, you have to look at those other things to get there. So I don't think we're there yet, Becky, but I know that obviously we're watching very closely. We're doing some work on transportation on this kind of reorganization for second semester. We've done some work around transportation and efficiency, and in the role of, if you remember, in innovation, we talked about systems and processes. If you've watched me in the past, I've talked about TransFinder, I think 2 years on budget time in a row. We actually, Dom and his team, we were able to implement and utilize that a bit here in December into January in a different way. And we realized how that product is going to help, that software can help us be a little bit tighter, like in transportation, time-wise, as well as possibly some fiscal. So there's a lot of different pieces that we're doing, but it's a great question, Becky. In fact, what's interesting, either you're a prophet, I think you are, because I think you know what happened in the forums. A couple of the forums at the elementaries actually asked that question. Will sixth graders stay at the junior high? All four of them asked the same question. A parent had that question in each of the forums. So obviously it's something, I don't know if it's asking, and nobody said the experience has not been a positive one, which I think is interesting. It's almost like this has been okay is kind of the feeling you're getting, but it's a very small sample. But to do that, I think I'd have to move district offices again and figure out where to go. So, but you know what? If it was going to be better for kids, obviously, as adults, that's what we would have to do. So it's a long-winded answer to your question, but it's one of those things. That's a radical move when you think about if you're going to adjust grade configurations. I believe before I got here, and some of my peers would know, I believe there was a study that actually looked at that in this district, but that study is probably 7-8 years old now. But I know there had been one at one time, really looking at reconfiguring districts. I mean, some districts, look at configuring all the K2, so you put that strong developmental in one place, and you just provide every support to make sure every student walks out of there knowing how to read at the end of second, third grade. There are different ways. There's pros and cons to all of it. So again, it's something that may be on the docket down the road. I don't know if the governor and the state of New York and the country can't recover, obviously those are the kinds of things that we're going to have to look even more intently at. So.
And I just had one more question. Raises are contractual. Do you have any collective bargaining agreements that will be expiring this year before next year's budget where you don't know what that contractual raise will be for the 21-22 year?
Yeah, Ms. Geithner, she and I had that conversation yesterday. I think we're pretty clear right now, right? Yeah.
We do not have any contracts that will be expiring. We have one unsettled contract currently, but no contracts that will be up for negotiation at this time.
Yeah, which is good news. So, and that's another positive that we have going into this. Another great question. Has somebody served on a budget committee before, Ms. Devendorf?
That and being union president, so.
I could tell. Thank you. Other questions? Good ones, too. All right. So what I would say is over the coming weeks, as we gather information that we believe that would be helpful, we will pass it on to this committee, with like these, and then that'll lead us into that next budget committee meeting. So we have our board meeting on Tuesday, and then what we'll do is as we share those things, we post them on our website. Anything related to budget publicly, we will share with you as well, so that you'll have it in your easy reference for it. As you're thinking about things, I'm a watcher. I love to see what other districts and other places are doing. So if you're seeing things that are going on in other places or questions that are being asked in other districts, generate those questions and pass them to us. What we can do is we'll assemble them and we can actually create an ongoing FAQ, which I think would be kind of a neat way to do that. Some of the best decisions I've ever made were actually decisions made in other districts, and I've learned from them why it's best to learn from others. And there's a lot of districts that are facing the same challenges that we are. And so I know that oftentimes I find myself having conversations about something that I see in an article in NISBA Eclipse, which is the New York State School Boards Association, has a daily listing of all these articles from across the state that come out. And it's very interesting to see what other parts of the state are experiencing and what they're thinking about. And they're not a lot different. But again, there is some uniqueness, and some of them have some great solutions. So if you're seeing those, that would be one of the charges that I would ask you. Just keep your eyes open and your ears, and really listen. And when you read something, pass it on to us. It may be an answer to a problem that will help us resolve an issue that we may have here as we're developing our budget as well. That's a good point. Any other questions or thoughts, or? Is this what you thought it would be? Any questions around your roles, responsibilities, questions? Okay. As I started off by saying, feel free to call, email. If I have my tie on, take me by the tie, make me listen, whatever it takes. And any information you share, we'll assemble. Again, I think this is going to be a really great team to help us gain some insights and to give us some really open, honest feedback, from, wow, what a great idea, to what are you thinking? You got to work us through this thing and tell us why this is going to be better for kids. How is this going to help us meet the strategic intents of our strategic coherence plan? How is this going to get us towards our achieving our mission and vision? That's your job. And our board, I'll tell you right now, our board is fantastic because they ask really good questions, and that's what a good board does. So you're working with a superintendent's team that wants those questions and wants that input, and then we have a board that's going to question us and say, where did this come from? Talk to us about the rationale. How did we get here? And I don't want to speak for my board members, but anything else you'd like to add, any of you, this evening? Or is this any question anybody has? All righty. Well, if that, I think I'm complete and gone through everything. For me, an hour is like really good. What my team is working on is we'll give you quick, targeted pieces of information, not hour-long presentations, because that's not helpful. So. And I think that'll be helpful. And if you're not getting information you need, just please ask. So Fallon, I'll turn it back to you as, I guess, chair of tonight's meeting.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited. If nobody else has any questions, I will ask one of my colleagues to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll move it. Second.
Okay, and can we just do a show of hands? Is everybody good with that? Mrs. Perry, you got everybody?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to our future work. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Thank you. All right. Good night, everybody.